We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm Mary Pat O'Neill, and I'm a volunteer with the Lake Washington Schools Foundation and created the Find Your Fit program. I'm a local college counselor, and tonight's session is meant for seniors and their parents, and it's about you've been admitted to college, which is so exciting, and how do you make the decision? So, a couple notes for tonight. This session is being recorded. The recording will be sent to everybody who registered. I will also send the PowerPoint slides because there's a lot of information on them. And as always, I'm happy to take questions at the end of the session. So, as I said, congratulations. I have been doing this for a long time, and it is so much work to apply to colleges, send in everything that they need, write those essays, do well in your classes, all that kind of stuff. So, it's a big decision, all right? When you think about it, you're going to be choosing a new home. You're going to be making new friends and finding a new community. It's a huge financial decision, and you must be here because you have more than one choice, which is wonderful. That's what I always want for students is to have wonderful choices. If you've attended anything from Find Your Fit before, you have heard me say over and over again that we're all different and it depends. It depends on the college, it depends on the person, it depends on the high school, it depends on the family. So just know there's no perfect college and there's so many wonderful ones. And what I hope that happens through our conversation tonight, that I'll give you some tools and encouragement, hopefully, to choose the environment where you're going to thrive, both academically, socially, and also personally. Because this is 4 years of your life, and it's a big decision. But I don't say that to scare you, okay? So it is both an emotional decision and it's also a rational decision because there's data, but then there's feelings that we have here. And you see at the bottom there it says it depends on you. It doesn't depend on your best friend. It your parents, yes, you need to take some of their input, especially when it comes to the financial piece. But again, we're all different. We respond differently. So listen to you. Don't listen to TikTok or anything else on social media. Listen to your instinct. Okay. Now, before we get into all the details, I want to make sure you know to be checking the portals for each college you are considering. All right, because there's important information there. You can have financial aid information. They might be telling you that you're missing documents. You might be getting notifications about scholarships. Maybe there's deadlines, housing applications and deadlines, how to enroll in classes, how to enroll in the college, signing up for orientation. There might be placement tests, especially like in math or in foreign language. You might be getting invited to join their honors program. There might be specific requirements for the major that you're in. So make sure you are checking your portal regularly. Okay, that is really important. I can tell you horror stories of students who didn't and missed out on things. I often joke that no one ever says to me, "Hey, Mary Pat, find me a bad college." All right. Everyone wants to go to a good college. And as I said, there are so many wonderful colleges out there. So this is just kind of an overview, but these are the factors that I believe makes a college good. First of all, the 4 year graduation rate. Do at least 50% of students graduate within 4 years? As I said, this is a big financial decision. College is very expensive, and you want to get out in 4 years. Now, if the school's graduation rate shows that they don't, make sure you've asked the question, why not? What's going on? Is it because the school's overcrowded and students can't get the classes that they need to graduate? Or is it because it's a co-op school, which means that students are required to work in their major, usually for 2 semesters. You're not paying tuition during that time, and you are earning money and hopefully a good wage, but you can't graduate in 4 years. And to me, that personally is not a bad reason to not graduate in 4 years because if you're doing a good job, you will probably get hired by the companies that you work with in the co-ops. And some of the more well-known schools that require co-ops are schools like Purdue, Georgia Tech, University of Cincinnati, Rochester Institute of Technology, Oregon State, Northeastern. So that's the first thing. Check the graduation rate. Then there's this number called the retention rate, which is the percentage of freshmen who come back for their sophomore year. Is the number at least 80%? If it's not, I'd be a little nervous about that because that means a third of the students are leaving. And you want to go someplace where they're doing a good job of engaging the freshmen, making them feel part of the community, because if they're doing that, freshmen typically want to come back. Again, the academic, that's why you're going to college, is for the academic piece. Do they have the major that you want? Are they advising you properly? Are you wanting to go to graduate school? How are they supporting you? Make sure you understand that. The career support, are there internships? Is there a strong alumni network? How's their career center? Then the fifth piece or fourth piece is the budget. Okay, the cost of college. Does it work within your family budget? And if your family hasn't talked about budget yet, make sure you do because this is a big one. And then the sixth piece is the culture a good fit for you? Are these your people? So when you've got your admission offers, and I know, some students might have 10 to 15 acceptances, some might have 5 or 6, whatever. I don't know how many you guys have, but at this point, we're less than a month to the college decision day of May 1st. So there should be schools that you can say, okay, I know I'm not going to these schools. So eliminate off your list the ones you know you're not going to. And then what can be helpful is to create a spreadsheet, a table. And we're going to be going through these in much greater detail, but what you want to, focus on are things like the academic experience, the campus culture and student life, the cost and financial aid, student support and well-being, career preparation and outcomes, logistics and practical fit, feels and intangibles and intangibles. Now, because I'm going to go through each one of these and have a lot of information to share. You do not have to know the answers to every single thing. And some of the things you might say, this is not important to me. And that's okay, because again, it depends on you and with your parents' input, what is important to you in this decision. So I'm going to start going deep here. So if you are deciding between more than 2 to 3 schools, again, I think you kind of need to narrow it down. And again, in my opinion, a quick way to do it is looking at that 4-year graduation rate. If it's less than, or I would, if the schools you're considering have less than a 50% graduation rate and it's not a co-op school, I would probably take it off. And then the retention rate. And you can find this information very easily on a website called collegedata.com. The average in the US with retention rate, again, that's the percentage of freshmen who come back for sophomore year, is about 73%. I would look for schools that have higher rates. So that's how I would eliminate schools. All right. So let's talk about academics, which is very important. So with each school, you should know whether or not you were admitted directly into a major or if you were a pre-major, you should know uh, what it is, or if you have to apply later on, like maybe at UW you want to be a biology major, but you were admitted pre-sciences. So you should know that. And how hard, like if you weren't admitted directly into the major, how hard is it to get into the major? And you should be finding that out. Is there a GPA requirement? And some of you might say, I'm not worried about the GPA. I do really well in high school. In college, it's not as easy to get all those A's. Okay, so make sure you find out what the course requirements are. Is there a GPA requirement, especially for selective majors? Maybe you got directly into your major, but what if you change your mind? Can you change your majors? And you should know the answer to this. What are the class sizes? Now, freshman classes, because these are more introductory courses like English and psychology and history or whatever, they can be pretty big. And some people really like that, some people don't. But then what about as you move up into your upperclassmen, upper division classes, do they get smaller? What about the advising? Are you assigned an advisor? Is there just drop-in advising? Are students satisfied? I was talking to a student at a school, I won't say the name. They had been there, they were at the end of their freshman year, and I asked them a question about class selection. And I said, what did your advisor say about that? And they said, I don't have an advisor. And I was horrified. You should be working with an advisor, all right? And you should, again, in my opinion, you want some place where they're going to be going, hey, Mary Pat, you haven't come for advising. We're not going to let you sign up for your classes until you come and meet with us. So find out what they're doing about advising. How about academic support? Is there tutoring? Is there a writing center? What about office hours? What's the culture for them? Then the curriculum. What are the core requirements? Is it a quarters? Is it a quarter system? Is it semesters? Some people do better with less classes, but a shorter time period. And then the teaching style. I talk to a lot of students who, when I ask them about what type of an academic environment they like, most students say that they like hands-on learning, they're visual learners. Um, do they offer that at the school that you're at, or is it more discussion based? Is it more theoretical? We're just sitting taking notes. And again, some people like one and some like another, but you should be finding out what what is the style at that school. Then we have campus culture and student life. And these are things, and a lot of times people think this doesn't matter, the student life and the culture, but it does because you're there 24/7. In high school, if you have a bad day, you get to go home, all right? You're with your family and you can relax. Um, but you're in this college environment 24/7. So this can be things like, what's the size of the school? Small, large, medium? Is it an urban campus, suburban? How easily can you get around? A lot of times students don't have cars, so how are you gonna get places? What about housing? Is there usually it's not, I would say at a lot of colleges, first year housing is guaranteed. What's the cost? Is it good? Is it gross housing? Sometimes it can be. What about the social environment? What are the traditions on campus? What about the Greek life? You can find out the percentage of students at a campus who are involved with Greek life, and Greek life means fraternities and sororities. And sometimes people say, "Oh my gosh, like 80% of students at Washington State are in Greek life." No, they're not. It's like 18%. So, that's not a big deal. If you choose not to do it, that won't impact you. But if you were going to a school where, let's say, it was 70% of students were involved in Greek life and you didn't want to do that, that could impact your social life because you're not choosing to participate in it. And I have this highlighted. How easily can students access clubs, activities, and organizations? Again, I don't know who I'm speaking to. I don't know what colleges you've been admitted to. Some of you might have applied to highly selective schools, and you might think, "Whew, thank gosh, that's over with," type thing. It is surprising. I hear this from former students, especially at more selective schools. The clubs and organizations on campus are selective, like where freshmen aren't allowed to join, or only, 2% of the freshmen who apply are given spots. So pay attention to that because belonging is an important piece of student life. What about diversity and inclusion? Again, everybody's different. Some people, when I talk to students, some students care about that. Some students don't care at all. But, if a student identifies, maybe with LGBTQ or, um, if you're Jewish or, whatever are you represented? Okay. What's the campus climate like? Okay. And in today's world, I think that's pretty important. And then the safety issues, campus alerts, student perceptions, surrounding areas. There are websites that'll tell you crime statistics on campuses. And so I have here the importance of belonging. And that's why I recently read uh, a college expert that I follow, and they'd done a study, and something like two-thirds of college freshmen were lonely. Okay. And so you want to make sure that you belong, that you can find a place. And that's why I have here on here, look for at least two places where you're accepted simply because you show up. Again, this isn't this, it could be just something as simple as I don't know, a pizza club or something like that, but make sure you feel like you belong on a campus. Then we're going to get to the cost and financial aid piece. So this is the part where parent input is very important. No offense to teenagers, but most teens I find don't have a grasp of the financial piece. Um, so, you know, does the cost of the college fit with your family budget? You should have received by now from each of the colleges that accepted you a financial aid letter that spells out everything that they will offer you and what the cost of college is going to be. So, uh, did you get any grants and scholarships? Are they, if you got any scholarships, are they renewable each year? Do you have to have a certain GPA in order to maintain those? What about loans? Again, this is just my opinion, but I would do all that I could to minimize the loans that you have to take out. And if you think, what's the big deal? Do a little search and read stories of people who regret their student loans because they can really overwhelm you. And some of them start earning interest immediately. Some of them uh, don't start generate, charging interest until after you graduate. Work study. Work study is jobs on campus. You have to have filled out the FAFSA in order to receive work study. And again, it depends on the college. Um, I have two adult children, but when they were in college, one of them went to a school where everybody who wanted work study could have it. And my daughter, she loved it because she could work in the chemistry lab and she really enjoyed that. And it's not like it's a ton of money, it's like $2,000, I think, a year or something like that. But you have to work in order in order to get the money. And then my son went to a school that the work study was for students who were more need-based. They got that. So, uh, and the other thing with college costs to remember, just like everything is more expensive, it pretty much goes up every single year, parents. So make sure you factor that into the decision. But this is a sample financial aid letter. It's from Whitman College, but you can see where they show all the financial aid awards, including loans that are on there. And then they show the estimated cost of attendance. Then they show um, uh, the cost of attendance. Then they show what the expected family contribution is because they got a whole bunch of scholarships and loans. Now you can see on here you can accept certain parts. So like if a family says, no, we don't want to take the loans out, you would not accept those. So, but you should get, and they all look different, just again, because every college does things differently. But this is basically what a financial aid award letter looks like. Okay, let's go back to things to consider. The student support and well-being. So this can be things like the mental health services, health services, you know, a lot of teens and college students struggle with mental health issues. If you're having issues, how long do you have to wait to get in? Is it a month, or is it day of? Is there crisis support? If you're a student who maybe you have a physical disability or a learning difference, maybe you need accommodations. Have you met with the disability resources people? Because parents can't do that for students. It's all on the student. What about if you need executive function support or help in, maybe you struggle in math, and you need to make sure you work with a math tutor. Again, the health services, or even, so again, going back to my own experiences, my daughter was on campus and there was a health clinic, but um, she couldn't get in for some reason, and she had cut her finger. She needed stitches. And she was in an area where there were, because she was in a big city, so there were different, urgent cares. Well, she went to the wrong one. So she went to the one that wasn't covered by our insurance, and then we had to deal with all that type of stuff. So, what's around? Is your insurance covered at these places? What about if, do they have transition programs for students? If you're a first generation, if you're somebody, it's not uncommon. Sometimes colleges have students start in the summertime. These might be students who either it might be because they need academic support beforehand to kind of get ready for college, or sometimes nowadays that's when that's when they're having students start because they've got too many kids starting in the fall. But what about all that for you? Then then we have the career preparation and outcome. And as a parent, I know this, and I think parents are all going to say yes, absolutely. But one of the important things as a parent that we want for all that we're investing in the college is obviously for our children to be successful adults who get employed and get jobs. So um, I'm always surprised when people don't spend time checking this, like exploring the career center that a college has on campus. But these are some things to think about: the internship access, the pipelines, like what employers are recruiting. Again, is it a co-op school? And just so you know, students and parents, so colleges might say, oh, we have this great co-op program or a great internship program. These aren't being handed to students. The student still has to go through the work of applying and finding these things and interviewing, and it's not a given. So students, you have to be proactive with this type of thing. And another thing just to keep in mind when it comes to the careers, and this kind of goes to the geography part of, making your college decision. But if you're if you're a student and you're thinking about going to a college maybe in California or Texas or Indiana, or wherever you're thinking about going, is your goal to get back to Seattle? It might not be. You might be like, no, want to get out of here. Can't wait. But a lot of times students are like, oh yeah. But you have to keep in mind that most colleges, uh, the recruiting, the alumni, all that, it's more regional. So you're more likely to stay in the geographic area that you go to college because of the jobs. So just something to think about. Make sure you check out the Career Center. Is it strong? How many people do they have employed? Are there partnerships with employers in the area? You know, when students graduate, are, what percentage, especially if you know your major, what percentage of students with a math major are getting employed within 6 months of graduation? What are the salaries, that type of thing? And I'll show some resources that you can use for that. Alumni networks are huge, okay? That is, it's who you know type thing. So check that out. And you can look on LinkedIn for this type of information. You can look to see, you can just research it, like Gonzaga, what is their alumni network like, and you'll find out about them. So here are some resources that are available that can help you with the Census Bureau has a post-secondary employment outcomes. The National Science Foundation does a survey of college graduates, and then College Scorecard is put out by the government, but it shows um, information about specific majors, being employed, loan, debt, student loan debt, and things like that. There's a lot of information that you can find. And then we get into the logistics and practical fit. So distance from home, okay? Um, Again, it should be factored into the cost of college. If you're going to school, let's say in Boston, all right, well, first of all, it's a long flight and it can be an expensive flight. And it might be that as a family, you say, well, okay, hun, you're not going to come home for Thanksgiving because 2 weeks later is Christmas break. And that's a lot of back and forth type thing. I've known students who have gone to school in colleges that are maybe 2 to 3 hours from the airport. And that can be a little worrisome for parents, like, oh, make sure my child gets on their shuttle. You know, I always think it's important to pay attention to how easy is it to get to and from the airport. What about transportation? Is there public transit? Do students need to have a car? Is there a campus shuttle? The weather and environment, okay? The seasonal realities, like a lot of times students are interested in the Midwest or the Northeast, and I'll say to them, "Do you like winter?" And they think of winter here, which, yeah, we had one day, 1 or 2 days of snow this year, but for the most part, it's not that harsh. Winter in the Midwest this particular year was very, very harsh. Okay, lots of snow, lots of below zero temperatures, blizzards, all that sort of stuff. Other years that maybe it's not, but pay attention to that. And again, how are you going to get around? Also pay attention to housing after the first year. As I said, at most colleges, the first year housing is guaranteed. But after that, it might not be. And sometimes, and again, it depends on the school. My son went to a school where students had to live on campus the second year. And it was probably less expensive if he could have moved off campus, but that was a requirement. So again, just find out what the policies are and whether, how affordable it is, whether or not it's safe, things like that. And then pay attention to your gut reaction. Do you feel comfortable? Are you excited? Does it make you feel like you belong? How does your family feel about the school? Do they support your decision? Are there any red flags, things that make you go, eh? And and I hope that you have visited some colleges, especially the ones that are on your final list, that you've seen them at least once, and maybe you're planning to go back for an admitted student day. But I can tell you, in person is very, very different than what you see virtually or you read about or anything like that. Um, with both my kids, went to different schools, different experiences. But with my daughter, one of the schools we visited, uh, she she was like, I got to get out of here. This place is making me just, she couldn't breathe. She was just getting a bad vibe, I guess, from it. I wasn't feeling it. I thought it looked great. But again, I'm not the one going there. And then when we went to the school, when we visited the school that she did end up attending, I asked her how she was feeling, and she said, I feel like I'm on the campus I'm going to go. My son thought he knew where he wanted to go. He had talked about it for years. He had visited once, but he visited when there weren't students on campus. It was more like just attending a football game. And then when he went back for an admitted student day, he felt very, very differently and did not want to go there anymore. And so, again, I realize everybody's situation is different, but I really hope you can visit in person before you make a commitment if you haven't already visited in person. So let's talk a little bit about admitted student events that they have. Um, Again, in a perfect world, if I can choose, I highly recommend doing the in-person ones, and it's because you get to sniff and touch and feel and eat the food and all that type of stuff. So here are some of the things that you should hopefully experience or have the opportunity to do. Sit in on a real class. What does that feel like? Explore and talk to the academic departments. If you're going to be an engineer, if you're going to be in business, that you can actually talk to the professors and the advisors, look at the housing and the dining, make sure you eat the food. Um, you know, no matter how great it is, you're going to get sick of it after the first year. Well, before the end of the first year, you'll be sick of it. Talk to current students without staff around. It's not uncommon. I've been at admitted student days where they'll have a panel presentation and all the staff leave the room so that the students can talk freely. But if they don't offer that, just talk to students. They understand and ask them questions. If you're somebody who needs any support, like academic support, make sure you check out that department because you have to go take initiative and meet with them. And if every time you go, you think, oh my God, these people are so mean, that's not a place you want to go to because that means you likely won't use the services. Walk around the campus by yourself. Well, you can have your family with you, but like don't you'll do a tour, that's what they always do, but then just go and walk around and see how you feel. What does it feel like being by yourself? Attend the financial aid or student life sessions and explore the surrounding area. Where's the grocery store? Is there a drugstore? What if you want to go to the movies? Is there a bus stop nearby? Drive through and see again, like, what if I want to go for a walk? Do I feel safe? Things like that. Now, you might not have the opportunity to go to an in-person uh, admitted student day. So they do have virtual and online sessions, and you can learn lots that way too. And these are some of the things that you can expect. They might have an academic session with the faculty in a major that you're interested in. They'll do a virtual campus tour. They'll do student panels, and again, ask questions. They might have major specific or interest-based breakout rooms. They'll usually have a financial aid and billing sessions, and then they'll have the Ask Me Anything type sessions. So another good resource is going onto YouTube or TikTok, probably. I'm old, I don't do TikTok, but you could say, uh, a day in the life of a student at UCSB or a day in the life at CU Boulder, wherever. And you'll see student videos and watch them. And again, see, are these my people? Are these look at what they're wearing, see how they talk, see what their attitudes are. If it feels like a place that you feel like you would be welcome and you would find your people. I think a good resource, again, to learn a little bit more about a college is to read a college's mission statement and to see if when you read it, you think, yeah, that's who I want to become. That's my goal. And uh, I've got, these are just paraphrased, but I'll focus on Washington State. They're committed to accessible, high quality education, research that serves Washington communities, and preparing students to lead and solve real world problems, especially in areas tied to the state's economic and social needs. University of Arizona aims to advance knowledge, serve its diverse communities, and address real world challenges through research, teaching, and outreach. It emphasizes access, innovation, and improving life in Arizona and beyond. So again, if you read something like that and you're like, Arizona, why do I want to improve life in Arizona? That's not what I care about. Again, that could be a reason not to go. It could be a reason to go too. It depends on you. So some things to think about are, will you be comfortable? Because remember, you're there 24/7. Like, is the food, the housing, things like that. Will you feel safe? That's your physical safety, your intellectual safety. I always tell students to really pay attention to the academic environment of a school and make sure that it fits you. Because again, there's some academic environments that is kind of a Hunger Games situation. And then there's some that are still challenging, but a little bit more collaborative. You know, will you belong? What do students do on the weekends? Now, this is something to pay attention to also. So you can find out the percentage of students that are from outside of the state that the school is in. So if, like let's say it's a California school, and you find out, first of all, you can find out how many students live on campus. That can be important. And if it's something like 20%, well, um, that's not that many people because they're all living off campus. But the other thing is if let's say it's California and you find out that 85% of the students who attend that school live in California, nothing wrong with that. But what you want to find out is, do most students travel home on the weekends? Because that changes your experience. So pay attention. And again, you want to make sure it's a place where you will thrive, where you'll be successful, where you'll find your people, where you're going to have fun too. Like again, this is 4 years of your life. And some students have some special considerations. So if a student if a student has ADHD or executive function needs, again, check out the support services, the advising, the structure. LGBTQ plus students, what's the campus climate? What's the housing policies? Things like that. If you're a first generation, which means you're the first person in your family to go to college, is there mentoring, transition programs? Is there special advising for you? If you're a student with a disability, what's the accommodation process? What's documentation do you need? Accessibility. And if you're pursuing a specific major or like a graduate school level, like if you want to go to medical school, you want to go to law school, you want to become a dentist, you want to become a physical therapist, whatever, check out all that. Like how are they supporting? If you're an engineer or an architect, make sure that those programs are accredited, things like that. Now, here's a few reasons not to choose a school, okay? Your best friend, boyfriend, or girlfriend is going there. Do not pick the school for that reason. You love the sports team. Yeah, sports is only a couple months, okay, of a season. Don't do it for that reason. It is funny because the NCAA tournament is, well, I guess it finishes up this weekend, but it's always funny the interest in colleges because of the NCAAs. It's the most selective school that I got into. I do not believe that acceptance rate is a determination of the best school. Sorry, parents, if you think that, but I do not. I do not. It's the other factors. So that's not the reason to go there. My favorite celebrity went there. It's where everyone thinks I should go. That's sad. Okay, again, this is not the decision for everybody. This is your decision, and I don't want to disappoint someone. And in my experience, that is usually parents. Students want to make their parents happy, but it's not where they want to go. So, um, have that conversation. I know it's difficult, but parents, again, there are certain factors like the money factor. I think that's important to have that conversation. But at the end of the day, if all things are equal, it really should be the student's decision because they're the ones who will be going there. Now, another resource that you can have or use is the FIS guide. All right. This is available on Amazon. It's like $20, comes out every year. Your high school career and college office probably has a copy of this, so you could go in and read it. I love this. This is the top 300 schools in the US. There are wonderful schools or schools that I think are really wonderful that aren't in there because they only do the top 300 and there's 2,200 four-year public and private schools in the United States. Um, but I like the FIS guide. So what it is It's based on student surveys. It's not a marketing piece. It's not written by college administrators. And they talk about things like the academic and social environment, diversity on campus, the sports scene surrounding area, current issues and concerns. So this is one paragraph from the University of Washington FIS Guide report, and I'll read it to you. It says, UW follows a quarter system, which means academics are challenging and fast-paced. And the climate varies greatly depending on your major, says a junior. A common complaint is having to apply to a major. It's already hard to get into UW, but once you do, you might not even get into your desired major, explains a senior. And this tends to create a hyper-competitive atmosphere. Entry into pre-professional and STEM-related programs is particularly difficult, and students say you might want to have a backup plan. 25% of undergraduate students have more than 50 students. Faculty members often compensate for large class sizes by making themselves extremely accessible, says a public health major, and many professionals are tops in their field. So there's some things that I go, oh, that concerns me maybe. But then there's other things where I go, oh, okay, this sounds great. So again, if you're trying, I tell students, like, if you read these, especially if it's one that you haven't visited in person, if you read it and you think, yeah, this sounds really good, okay, maybe continue. But if you read it and you think this is not for me, then take it off. So the FIS Guide is a good resource. So back in 2014, Purdue University and Gallup, this is the only time this survey has ever been done, and it was a big deal, and it's still a big deal. And it was done in 2014, which I realize is 12 years ago, but this is still very pertinent information. And they surveyed, I don't know, like over 30,000 student graduates of college, and to find out what made a successful college experience. And these were the top answers. One professor made me excited to learn. My professor cared about me as a person. I had a mentor who encouraged me to pursue my goals and dreams. I was active in extracurricular activities and organizations. Although I did hear a podcast where the person who did the survey talked more, and it was actually, I was active in one, like they really went deep into one activity in organization. So I had an internship or job that allowed me to apply what I was learning in the classroom, which is huge. And I worked on a project that took a semester or more to complete. And this in college is typically known as a capstone project. And a lot of times students don't want to do them because they're work. But at the end of the day, that is the thing that made for a successful college experience. And also, probably help them get the internship because they learn so much through the process. And I share this with you because this isn't something that you can do a Google search, or ask ChatGPT, does University X have a professor who will make me excited to learn? You can't find that out, okay? But you can talk to students and again, talk to professors and see how accessible that they are and look at the curriculum and what classes do you have to take? Are you excited to be taking them and things like that. And at the end of the day, I truly believe it's not where a student goes that is important. It's what does a student do where they're at. You know, I tell kids like, man, you can be successful anywhere if you make the most of the opportunities that you're given at a place. And I don't mean this cruelly, but and I get it. I work with teens. I've worked with teens for a long time, and I know all the pressure and that everybody puts, but truly no one is thinking about where you are going to college. You might think that they are. They're not. Your parents are thinking about it, and you're thinking about it. Nobody else cares. They're only thinking about where they're going to go to college. So don't let others' opinions, because people have opinions and they'll say it all the time. I I have said for years that I wish people didn't talk about their college choices, that they waited till May 1st and then kind of like a baby reveal where you cut the cake and you go, look at me, I'm going to this based on the school colors. But if beforehand people just have opinions and they will share them and they'll make you feel bad and they're not you, okay? Nobody cares. This is your decision. And um, when I when I've meet with students sometimes to help them make the decision and we go through the pros and cons and all the different things, and if I still don't know what I'll say to them, and this surprisingly works a lot, is I'll say, okay, say out loud, I am going to, you know, X university, and then I'm going to the University of, like, say the, let's assume you got two left. Say the two names out loud. How do you feel? What happens? Do you get all excited, like, oh my God, I'm going there? And then I'm going. I've seen students have very, very violent reactions, and it makes it very evident which school they should be going to. So you can try that. You should expect to hear maybe multiple times from the colleges that have accepted you. Okay. So in college world, uh, there's different numbers. One is acceptance rate, and colleges always work super hard to get those as low as possible. But the other number that they care about is yield. And what yield is, it's the percentage of students who accept a college's offer of admission. So while they want low acceptance rates, they want high yield, okay? But you might have been accepted to 12 schools, but there's only one of you, and you can only go to one. So they're all trying to get you to say yes to them. So as soon as you know that you won't be attending a college, email admissions and let them know. It's just a simple, dear, admissions. Thank you so much for your offer of admission. I have decided to go elsewhere. And the reason why, it's April 2nd. The reason why you want to do that is there are students who are probably waiting for who would love to have an opening, who are maybe on a wait list. So just, it's like RSVPing to a party that you're not going to go to. Just get it done, because otherwise you're going to be, hey, are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? Just get it taken care of, and then they won't bother you anymore. Okay, so now, if you have been waitlisted, I know a lot of colleges do waitlist, you still need to commit to a college that has admitted you by May 1st. All right. Get excited. Be thrilled. Don't think about, well, what if? The waitlist is a maybe. It is not a plan. And while you may get accepted to the waitlisted school, it's possible you might not hear back for months if you do get off the list, if at all. And you can look, uh, you know, I think it's College Board, I think. Anyways, you can find information on, the number of students and historically, each year or last year who got offered a waitlist spot. So like if it's something like 4,000 students were offered a waitlist spot, uh, 3,000 accepted the spot, and four of them got off the list. Okay. Again, just being a data person, it's highly unlikely that that's going to happen to you. And, so like at UW, if you've been waitlisted, UW has told the college counselors in the area they fill the wait list by the majors that they need students for. All right. And so that's typically not going to be, computer science, engineering, the more selective majors. So again, love love the one who loves you, and just know that. So some important reminders: remember your senior year grades count. Okay, they count. Well, in a slide, I'll be talking about, you once you make your decision, you need to let your school counselor know where you're going, because your final transcript will be sent to that college. And if, if you've been a strong academic student and all of a sudden senior year, second semester, you're getting C's and D's, it's possible a college could say, you know what, we've changed our mind. So pay attention to that. That's important. And then the deadline is May 1st. May 1st by 11:59 p.m. Uh, Not May 2nd, because if you wait, if you say, "Oh, I've decided on May 3rd," yeah, I finally decided, your spot's not there. They've very likely it is gone. So make sure you pay attention to that. It's May 1st. Do it sooner. And as I said, notify your school counselor about your college decision. Your final transcript will be sent to that college. And then some final thoughts. So whenever you decide, once you make your decision, be excited, okay? Talk about the opportunities. Say why you chose the college. Don't give people the chance. Just be like, I'm so excited. I've decided to go to this university because they gave me an amazing scholarship. Um, I can do research as a freshman. I got direct admit into the major that I want, and I went and visited the campus and I felt so at home and the food is delicious, whatever. But say why. And you should know why. And again, I gave you a bunch of things to think about, but all those reasons aren't necessarily your why. And as I said, no one really cares where you go to college. At this point, it seems like everybody cares, but once it's done, nobody cares. Be excited for your friends' decisions. Don't be going like, "Where? You're going where?" Be like, "Oh, yeah, that's so great." Make everybody feel good about this. Make sure to go to orientation. That is very important, okay? And going to college is a huge, huge, huge transition. Okay, I don't want to minimize that. So use the summer to get ready. Make sure, like I said, go to orientation, meet with your advisor, pick your classes, study, like, oh, what's my curriculum going to be? Are there internship opportunities? Is there research opportunities? Or maybe there's scholarships I can apply for. Maybe there's jobs I can get. Like, what clubs do I want to get involved in when I get on campus? Like, don't wait. Learn as much as that you can so that you are ready for that. So. Anyways, that is what I have for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. As I said earlier, this has been recorded. I'm going to send the recording. Well, I don't do it. The foundation will be sending the recording along with the PowerPoint slides because I know there was a lot of small data points on there for you. You can always email me at findyourfit@lwsf.org. Again, I'm just happy for you. This has been I know it's such a big process. You should be so proud of yourself. Make good choices. And anyways, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.